Welcome to another episode of the What You Need to H2Know podcast, where we introduce you to the people, ideas, and innovations shaping the water industry. Before we dive in, I wanted to take a moment to introduce myself. Hi, my name is Leah, and I'll be your guest host for today. I am a licensing and records specialist with the City of Guelph and also actively on the Certification and Education Committee, as well as the Education and Outreach Task Force. These groups are both devoted to strengthening operator training, improving certification pathways, and expanding awareness to the essential work happening across the water industry. Through the involvement, I've had the privilege of supporting initiatives that help operators grow, succeed, and stay connected in an ever-evolving needs and meeting those needs in our sector. Today, we are joined by Jonathan Grant, Director of Sales, also known as a Workforce Ninja at Operational Technical Services. Jonathan works with municipal and industrial water and wastewater facilities to address operator needs, support plant startups, strengthen ongoing operations, and respond to emergencies. He also advises a number of water technology companies on partnerships, strategy, and growth. Through these roles, Jonathan has developed a unique perspective on the relationship between people, technology, training, and the future of water operations. In this episode, we will be talking about the operator workforce, how artificial intelligence could support training and knowledge transfer, and why technology still needs experienced people behind it. Jonathan, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, happy to be here.
Love the bow tie.
Thanks. And don't worry, I was told to dress like I would for a conference, but I am still wearing shorts.
Perfect. Glad we have that established. So to start, can you tell us a little bit about your background and how you found your way into the water industry?
Sure. I took a sort of random route to getting here. Out of school, I was working on new product consulting in consumer packaged goods, and the clients that I was working with were selling junk food, and so I was making the world a worse place. So I realized I was willing to work crazy hours, but wanted to go back to do something better for the world, and so focused on transboundary water politics and economics, and luckily met the right person at the right time. It was Dave Henderson at XPV, and he introduced me to WaterTap, which was the Water Technology Acceleration Project, and I ended up working there for 5 years, and haven't looked back since. Love water, love technology, and been doing that for about 15 years in various forms.
It's always amazing how people just kind of stumble into the industry too. I mean, I know personally, all through high school and everything else, I was convinced I was going to be an equine veterinarian, and I am not that. So it's crazy.
Still get to ride horses.
Yep, I do to this day. It's just, never thought I'd picture myself here at the time, but I wouldn't have it any other way. So you've worked with utilities, operators, and water technology companies. What has kept you interested in the industry? Is it the people, the technology? What has kept you interested?
I think all of the above. I mean, it's the people. We say it all the time. If you want to be in water, you're in water because you care about it, and that's true across the world. It's true across every role that I've met within people in the water industry. So, I love getting to meet all the people at utilities, at partner companies, groups like that. The technology interests me as well. I mean, if we take water technologies versus, say, energy companies, with water treatment, there's 15 different ways to do each part of the treatment process. So figuring out exactly what's right becomes this much more complex thing versus, generating energy. There's a discrete amount of ways to generate energy and then transmit it. So, it's always interesting. The people are always interesting. And, no matter what we do, if we're selling or deploying good technologies in our industry that work for the problems that people need and have, we're making the world better. So, it's a very mission-driven industry, and that's what I love about it.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you said, you kind of touched on, like, there's so many different pieces to the puzzle. I don't think people can quite fathom that, whether you're in the private sector, public sector, et cetera. There's just so many moving parts around water. And I always, whenever I'm talking to, like students or people looking to get into the industry, I always kind of say too, like, it's good job security. Everybody needs to drink water. Everybody needs to use that water, and it's got to go somewhere when we're done with it too. So lots of different moving parts are involved with that. So Always
just
good
on
to
that note, I can make my lame joke.
go for it.
If we solve the global water and wastewater challenges that we're facing, then we can solve something much harder like telecommunications and conference calls.
Right? Okay, so your title at Operational Technical Services includes Workforce Ninja. What does that title mean, and what does your role involve?
Totally. And so one that's David, our CEO, when I told him that, he has a good sense of humor. And so he's like, you know what, that is fine. That sounds interesting. Let's do it. And it was inspired by a Guelph company. So if you know Tim Southerns in Aramosa Engineering, he was Master of Chaos. And then all of his team had cool titles. And so I was like, you know what, I want to do something like that. And because OTS is historically a staffing company for water and wastewater operators, and I was moving into a role that was much more into workforce, I was like, hey, what if we do this and have that as my title? And he said, yeah, that's awesome. Our chief technical officer is now the master of mayhem. Um, and I'm working on getting others to also adopt fun titles as well.
That's great. I mean, you have to have fun with it, right? I mean, yeah, there's cool, fancy, big titles, but I know I have a badge reel that also says Chaos Coordinator, and I'm
Yeah.
like, that should probably be my job title too, because part of my role is ensuring that all of our operators here are up to date, have all their training hours. I'm coordinating the training programs, making sure everybody's got their licenses up to date, et cetera. And it can be, I always lovingly call it my never ending puzzle. And it can be so chaotic sometimes. So you kind of got to just have fun with it.
And you could be the puzzle. You could be the puzzle master.
Yeah, that's another good one too. Thank you. We'll keep that one in mind. So what workforce challenges are water and wastewater facilities facing most often today?
I mean, and I know we've been talking about it for a few decades now. It's the workforce shortage. To contextualize it, we are hiring enough operators to. We're hiring half the amount of operators that we need to maintain the workforce right now every year across North America, and probably similar numbers in the rest of the world. And so we just don't have the people, which is crazy because they're good, solid, stable jobs. And once you're in, there's a lot of security, like we were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
And so because we have so few people coming in, that compounds the issues of you then have less people on staff, more overtime, overworked people. And so it goes from everything from, it's disrupting day-to-day operations, but it also could become a safety risk as well. Because the most dangerous thing, is when you have an operator who's on a night shift after having already done a day shift because they're covering for a double and they're by themselves. So, it's making sure we have enough staff to operate the plants we have. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. And I find, that kind of goes hand in hand with retention as well. If operators are feeling extremely burnt out and undervalued, they don't want to stick around either. So it all just kind of goes hand in hand. And that too is a never-ending puzzle, it seems, for a lot of municipalities across the province.
Yeah, and then because we have so few people, it's how do we get them up to speed as quick as we can?
Hmm.
Um, and it's a challenge because experience matters. And how do you get someone who's fresh out of high school and give them experience? It becomes a massive challenge for our industry.
Yeah, exactly. So speaking of experience, what makes someone a strong water or wastewater operator beyond having the required technical certifications?
And I think it's one of the main things, and I talk about this a lot with Coulter, our master of mayhem, a lot. It's the ability to be calm under pressure, because a lot of times operators will face, you know, situations that are stress inducing, and it's can you deal with it and work through the problem systematically, um, versus reacting, panicking, or making gut decisions versus following the proper protocol and being able to think on your feet is key. And I mean, he always tells a story about when he was 18 and that there was a massive forest fire and his chief operator was out of the office, so he had to go figure out all the processes and maintain everything in the system until that guy got back. So I think calmness under pressure and being able to deal with situations as they present themselves, that's the biggest, because we can all get book smart. We can all, you know, for the most part, learn skills. But it's that temperament of calmness under pressure that is such an undervalued resource. Especially until you have an emergency situation, which hopefully you don't have, but
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, at one point or another, you're gonna face something that you're, not as familiar with or not as comfortable with dealing with. So that's right. I used to have like this little motto on my desk that said everything is figure outable. Even if it's super stressful and you feel like you're in the trenches at the time, everything works itself out. And I also find the biggest piece of advice that I was given as a new operator is just to get out in the plant. Go watch the other operators, how they operate, how they troubleshoot, what little quirks the plant has, things like that. I feel like that's such an important aspect of that knowledge transfer as well. And I think a lot of new operators are, they're shy, inexperienced, they're trying to get the lay of the land, but you just don't learn as much when you're sitting there in the ops room either. And you're not putting yourself into those situations. And that's how you get that core experience. I'm not dancing enough. My lights are turning off.
exactly.
There we go.
Hey, awesome. Yeah, no, I completely agree. I mean, it's and so that's been one of the challenges that we've been looking at is how do we impart experience into operators at every level.
Mhm.
So whether it's someone just entering the workforce or it's someone who's going from grade 3 to grade 4, um, because it's every one of those has different experiential challenges, and sometimes manage. I mean, even the underrated skill of once you get senior enough, managing a crew is a very different skill set than what made someone a potentially great operator. So
Right,
how,
exactly.
how
And
do you
it's
deal with those
also,
scenarios?
yeah, and it's also a thing of like stepping out of that comfort zone as well when you're facing something that's a bit more of a leadership role potentially as you get more experienced. What
Yeah.
are some of the biggest gaps that you're currently seeing in operator training?
Yeah, so I mean, for us, it's historically there's just the teaching for certification to the book, which obviously we need. There's a certain set of understanding that all the operators need to know. But then it becomes the question of, okay, that's great that I know this piece of, factual regulatory information, but how does that apply to my plant? And is it a
Mhm.
small plant where you're the only person on shift, or is it a massive plant where, there's 30 other operators on shift at any given time? And so understanding how to tailor that training um, for those specific plants, those specific processes, because like we were saying earlier, I mean, there's tons of different ways to treat water, wastewater in any given scenario. So how do you adapt the regulatory and permits of the plant to training someone on specific things? And I think very good trainers are very good at that. They'll go to a whiteboard, they'll whiteboard a solution. Um, but not everyone does that, and not everyone, if you get parachuted into a new plant to train someone, you may not know the intricacies of the plant, but
Mhm.
sure as heck the senior operators will.
Yeah, and it's kind of hard to gauge like the different scenarios that you could face across the board at different plants too, because honestly, it's like each one has their own different personalities and quirks and everything else. And a lot of places you'll go from one city to another, one municipality to another. They vary so greatly in size and complexity and everything as well. So it's hard to, generalize training while also, kind of pinpointing and making it more tailored to each place.
Definitely, and like I mean, even I think there's an exact same plant that is in Peel region in Ontario. That's the same plant as in Singapore, because the same person designed it and said they were a copy.
Okay.
And I bet they operate completely differently because one of them's in the tropics and one faces the heat that we have now, but
Oh
also
yeah.
freezing temperatures. So
Yeah, absolutely.
um, yeah,
Huge variance.
definitely.
I know we kind of talked
Yeah.
about those experienced operators. They carry a lot of valuable knowledge with them. How can utilities kind of capture that knowledge before employees retire or move on?
And so, yeah, it's there's so many ways to do it. So it's everything from having people shadow, having them even write down and log everything in more detail, to running, this is what happened, back in the day, but we haven't seen it for 20 years, but it could definitely happen again at this plant. So it's running through tons of different scenarios. Um, and that's where we're trying to capture that as well with our digital tools. If you're fine, I'll go into that part as well. And so essentially capturing those scenarios and being able to test on them and then see how experienced operators would react, and they can tell you exactly what they would have done or what they should have done if they did it wrong back when they did experience. Then you can throw those scenarios at people in a safe environment so that they can be tested against how they should, in a situation like that, react and act based on the given inputs.
Yeah, I like that. I like the idea of kind of capturing things more detailed in logbooks. And I know there are things like simulators and that kind of technology out there nowadays too, which I think could be very useful when it comes to passing down that knowledge as well. Like you said, running through the various scenarios that you could be faced. You don't necessarily see every single day, but it can happen. It's not impossible. So I think th those aspects are definitely important to pass down to the newer operators as well.
Definitely, yeah, and that's one of the things what we partnered with a massive AI development firm to be able to help us implement this. They're really smart, and I act as the translator between our SMEs. As Cultural, I mentioned, is a T5 D5 in California, and Rhonda Harris is our president. She's a an AA water wastewater in Texas, and she was president of WEF in um, a couple years ago. And it's how do we translate their subject matter knowledge into an AI platform with AI folks who have never thought about, a lot of the programmers have never thought about, the water systems before. So it's been a lot
Right.
of fun. And what they're developing is a way to ingest all of the plant data, use machine learning and AI to say these are likely scenarios that this plant has faced over the past 5, 10 years, depending on the data. And
Mhm.
then we use that to develop scenarios around that, which is then curated by senior operators on both the client side and our side to then allow people to, yeah, test it in front of a computer, and feel that pressure, but not in a real life scenario. So I always liken it to, it's not an F1 simulator. Those are the most advanced simulators, but we're trying to get close to it.
Yeah, I love the concept of the simulators, especially when it comes to operator training, because they can learn the cause and effect without actually having that cause and effect. Because as you know, when it comes to, things like treatment, even in the distribution systems and wastewater systems as well, everything's kind of tied together. You touch one thing and it's domino effect. And so to learn that cause and effect and kind of learn, what causes this if I touch this, etc., is such an important skill to learn. But sometimes you just don't get to develop that skill until you're faced with those situations out in the field.
Definitely, and that's where junior operators, they are going to have failures, but I'd much rather have them have those failures in front of a computer screen than
Absolutely.
than in the field where there's real life implications. And yeah, I mean that's the we believe the quickest way to get junior operators up to speed is to throw all these things at them, so their muscle memory, their mental memory is tied to, oh yeah, I've seen this, and I have a mental checklist in my head of what to do,
Mhm.
and who to call. It's sometimes it's also, don't try and solve this on your own. You know, call up the on-call senior operator. They've probably dealt with this before.
Right. And it goes working well under pressure aspect of it too, which is also a good skill as we've talked about.
Yeah.
Going kind of along with that, how can facilities make training more practical and relevant to the situations operators face every day?
Yeah, and I think it's giving them facility specific information, and so it's you know, and there are certain nuances to every plant or facility. It's, you always know that your pressures may spike, which can cause an issue in a distribution system in one area. Or for instance, you always know that one aeration basin happens to be more efficient than the other. So learning those things, and you can pick those things up in the data that may or may not be picked up by someone, or they may not remember to tell you. So if it's picked up in the data, you can then uh, enable people to learn on those things that just become, you know, matters of course for people who've been operating it for 20 years. They don't even think about it because it's just part of their daily routine.
Right.
Um, and so the more we can extract what's happening from real live data and put context around it, the better we can be as an industry in terms of training on the specific facilities in specific scenarios.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Um, so moving right along, I know we've kind of mentioned artificial intelligence a little bit through our conversation so far, but in simple terms, where do you see artificial intelligence fitting into water and wastewater operations?
And so many ways, because there's everything from digital twins to what we're talking about in terms of training to sandboxes for for utilities to play around with in terms of if I change out this equipment. So you know I see it as being good at what it does well, and I always liken it to the best chess players aren't chess players or chess computers. They're players who understand how to take the information from the computer and act based on it. So
Right.
it's very much a human in the loop where you're getting the right decision support. Um, and some things, you know, can be run in an automated fashion. I mean, we've been running things on PLCs for a long time, but any time that something goes out of the norm, it's a question of, is the person trained to act on it? And are they being given all the accurate information and potential recommendations that they can decide on? So I think those two keys are there. Um, and then, of course, do they have the SOPs up to date and written appropriately for them to access when needed, or are they, in binders on the shelf? So, I mean, that's why our second focus is on SOPs
Mhm.
because they were written well when they were written, but sometimes that means they were written 40 years ago and haven't been updated based on change outs of components and things like that.
Right.
So, um, yeah, and I mean, I think artificial intelligence can also be used very much for developing anything that requires a lot of information being compiled. Um, so, you know, 5 years of data to then send out for, to then compile and understand an issue so that you can then actually have an appropriate RFP for a utility to then say, okay, we've been having these 5 or 6 issues. They can either be bundled or separated, but in a way you're able to capture so much more information succinctly um, and then get the right answers more effectively. So um, yeah, I've rambled a little bit, but everything from training to operations to effectively being able to understand what's going on right now.
Yeah, that's a good point. I never really thought about thinking from an operations perspective, even, using that to look at trends and like preventative maintenance and how efficiently things are running. I feel like that's a lot of the data that can be analyzed through artificial intelligence and can kind of give us a better picture of things.
Definitely, and I think it's and I would use pump curves as the easiest
Hmm.
problem to solve. I mean, it's not an easy problem. Well, it's an easier problem compared to biological interactions in wastewater.
Yes.
Um, but AI can calculate the real pump curve and show the degradation over any given period of time, and based on seeing that pump you know, do that 1,000 times at different plants, it can then provide recommendations um, on what types of maintenance could be used for it. So,
Hmm. Hmm.
um, yeah, AI where it's appropriate, I think is the way I would say it.
Yeah, especially because, it is still reasonably new and there's a lot of unknowns. And like you said, like it's just not quite as, I guess, knowledgeable of the industry specifics as well. Do you think AI could turn operating manuals, SOPs, and facility records all into information that's easier for operators to find and use?
Definitely. I think we're working on it now, so that it's easy to input from a tablet, but then also easy to access from a tablet or phone, or even Google Glass if you were so inclined, or one of the glasses like that. But the key is how do we have accurate information from wherever we are about the facilities that we're needing to look at. So, if you needed to dive into a pump station or a lift station and understand what was going wrong there, there may be cameras, there may be sensors, um, but how do you know if they're working? So you almost have to, verify with. Right now, you have to verify with either going there or hoping that the information is accurate. But there are ways to use AI and digital twins to verify that much more effectively.
Yeah. Kind of going back to newer and inexperienced operators, do you see like how do you think AI could support a newer operator who encounters an unfamiliar alarm or process or issue?
Oh, definitely. It's I mean, if they've got the tools there, that the alarm goes off, and here's how I work through it in with using the AI. The alarm goes off immediately on their tablet, phone, or computer screen, depending on where they are. It gives the AI can say, okay, you've never seen this before, but here are the likely causes of this and the likely solutions. Here's the order of operations that you should follow based on the SOPs. Here's who you should call, and give them a clear understanding within the context that the human's the actual decision maker. Because AI can only pick up what it knows or what
Right.
information it has access to. So, um, if it's saying there's a leak and it can't identify it, um, and it's saying that it's outside the building, but your feet are wet, you can. There's still a need for the human, but taking within the context of the AI. So, our big thing is that, I mean, we're an operator company, so we still value humans. Being a human myself, and the goal is not for the AI to have executive function. The goal is for it to give the best recommendations for those operators, to make the appropriate decisions at the appropriate levels.
Right. So it'll present you with all of the information that you could potentially need to make those decisions, but that critical thinking aspect and that actual decision making aspect is still on the operator.
Yes,
Yeah.
until Terminator takes over.
Never know.
Yeah.
Do you see AI becoming an on-the-job training assistant rather than a replacement for formal training and experienced operators?
Yeah, we see it as an assistant. I mean, I mean, at some point you could see a digital person, teaching you, but I mean, the reality is that that human experience trainer, is still very valuable, whether they're in person or remote. But it's still a human job, and as we move forward, there may be more digital parts of it, but yeah, I don't see it as I see the AI support as both on the job training and support, ongoing.
Yeah, I can definitely see it playing a supportive role as things kind of progress and AI becomes more intelligent.
Yeah,
Like you said, kind of like supplying you with that information, capturing all that data for you so that you can just kind of look at it and make that informed decision kind of on the fly. I think that would be very, very helpful when it comes to especially those newer and experienced operators as well to use as a tool.
definitely.
Yeah. Um, how important is it to involve frontline operators when an AI training tool is being designed or tested?
Oh, very important. I mean, it's when we were developing ours, Rhonda and Coulter are dynamically involved, and I mean, Rhonda has 50 years of experience of operating and training operators, and Coulter has, I think, 25 years of experience in that. So, from our perspective, it's the only way to do it because otherwise, and I know there's always a tension between the engineered design and the actual operational outcome. And no one's wrong in it, but ultimately it doesn't matter who's right. It matters that we get clean water to people, and it
Yes.
matters that we take away the wastewater and treat that appropriately. So I think having operators involved, in anything increases the ability of success, or increases the success rate and the speed to which you get to that success. So um, I think it's the most vital part that I can think of, is having the frontline workers understanding. Because yeah, if we could design anything for anything, but if you don't have the people using it involved, um, you'll be lost.
That's true. I mean, you can tell a computer to do whatever you want it to do, but at the end of the day, it's that human aspect too, like you mentioned. It's those people who are boots on the ground, the frontline workers, they're the ones seeing those issues day in, day out. They're the ones that are, doing the day-to-day operations, and they're seeing how these plants behave, and they know all of those little quirks and how the plants operate, and how things are out in the field, real time in the real world. So definitely important to involve them in the development of this kind of technology for sure.
100%.
Going along with that, I know we kind of mentioned, AI has the capability of compiling data and things like that for us, can present us with information to help us make decisions. But sometimes AI can provide incomplete or incorrect information. What safeguards need to be in place before operators can rely on these tools? Because like you mentioned, it's, potentially public health on the line here as well. I'm not
Oh,
dancing
definitely.
enough again.
Hey, we'll make the next podcast a dance party.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, 100%, because it's the guardrails are key. Because if AI hallucinates in real world operations, that could be like, and it makes a recommendation, even though there's still a human in the loop. If they rely on it too much and it makes those recommendations poorly, we're screwed.
Yeah.
And so that's where the key is. There's a couple different dynamics of guardrails. So it's guardrails of making sure it's not hallucinating. So that has to be programmed in. And there are ways to do that. Basically saying if you don't know the answer, or if you have a statistical uncertainty about the answer, you don't say it, and you say, you need to go talk to your supervisor or X, Y, or Z type person.
Right.
Um, there's the ensuring that it's only pulling from the correct information. And so then that becomes a knowledge cleansing and knowledge understanding exercise. And then there's security concerns in terms of how are the comms infrastructures even happening? It's because in theory it's not that easy, but someone could hack into a meter, which is the least secure part of the entire utility. They could hack into a meter, infiltrate into something, and start sending other incorrect information out. And so the key is how do you secure all of those three dynamics? It's the comms infrastructure, the knowledge base, and the guardrails for hallucinations. There are probably more things, but those are at least the three that I think about the most, because those are the three weakest potential points.
Yeah, that's a good point. The security aspect too, because I mean, we do see it happen. Hackers are out there. They have gained access to water systems in the past, potential for it to happen in the future as well, especially as technology becomes more and more of a thing in day-to-day operations potentially. Um, but like you said, it also boils down to that human aspect of it and that judgment and having a person kind of make that final call and final decision when it comes to changes and things like that. Because, we rely too much on it. If things go wrong, things can go very wrong in our industry, as you're aware. So it's just kind of keeping that in mind as it continues to develop as well.
Yeah, I mean, self-driving cars are very safe, but they have hit people.
Yes, exactly. How can utilities use AI to strengthen operator judgment without making people rely or become dependent on that technology?
Ooh, that's a great question. I feel like we're at like that cusp in society where people are just relying on, well, ChatGPT told me to say this. And but yeah, I mean, it's ensuring that they're not only going to their tablets or their phones or whatever device they have with the information on it. It's making sure that there are times where they are just critically thinking. So
Mhm.
even after running through a scenario that they've dealt with on the computer, it's talking with them, talking through it with them as humans. Um,
Yes.
you know,
Kind of like, what would you do in this scenario? Why did you decide to do this? And kind of talk things through. Yeah, that makes sense.
exactly. I was having this conversation with a person who's responsible for emergency management at a utility in the States when we were at ACE this year, and she was saying that she just walks up to people at the utility and talks about scenarios with them, unprompted. And she was like, I get incredible feedback just doing that because they have to think on their feet, and so it's that combination of classroom scenario, AI training, but also again, everything comes back to humans.
Yes, and thinking on your feet, especially
Yes,
when you have a surprise scenario. Pop
exactly.
quiz. I'm sure my operators would love if I started doing that.
Hey, you never know until you try.
Yeah, exactly. We'll see. Bonus training hours. Here we go. Now, I know there are a lot of large municipalities that do make investments in this kind of technology. But for a smaller utility with limited staff and limited resources, what would be a practical first step toward using AI in operator training?
And I think it's right sizing for the right utility because if and I think from our perspective, we're developing a tailorable out of the box solution that works for a small utility, but also for a large utility. You just break out the modules differently, and um, I think the key is when there's an issue, when defining a scope of how someone can use AI. The key is, you know, what do you want? What's possible? What are the and what's realistic? And then having that practical discussion. But AI isn't just for the big wealthy utilities. It's for every utility, and we're seeing lots of cool companies go after how do we help digitize a lot of the smaller and more remote utilities, um, which don't have as big a complex systems because they are smaller and simple isn't the right word, but less complex.
Yeah.
And so that then also scales down the types of scoping that you would need to do to deploy any AI solutions.
Right, that makes sense. And then I guess as, AI continues to develop in the industry, I guess it would also in turn kind of become more accessible as time goes on as well.
Exactly. I mean, 5 years ago, no one was using Chat GPT. I can't
It's
remember
very
if
true.
if it even existed, but now it's now it's Chat GPT, Claude, Gemini. I mean, I use Gemini to take most of the notes in most of the meetings that I'm in, and it saves me a lot of time afterwards. But again, it's also just regurgitating what everyone said.
Yeah.
So um,
Yeah,
yeah,
I fully admit, yeah, I'm also a big user of like Copilot and Gemini as well. And honestly, when I think back to like 5 years ago, I don't know what we all did without it because you're right, it is such a good tool to use for things like that, like meeting minutes and, kind of helping you brainstorm, not fully relying on it, but having it give you that extra little push and extra little bit of ideas is extremely helpful. So, what questions should a utility ask a technology provider before adopting an AI-based training or operational tool?
yeah, I think it's, how is it going to be relevant to me? And what are the goals that you've achieved with other utilities? Because I think that, there's a couple of different factors. It's, how many emergency situations did we solve? How many did we avoid? Um, also things like how many more people passed, a certification exam on the first try. And so there's a number of different metrics and it depends on what they're looking for as to what to ask. And then there's the standard ones on, security. How do I know that, you're going to train on my data and then it's going to be used everywhere. And my secret information is going to get out. And so I think that there are, you know, foundational questions that you have to ask, you know, about security and how it actually works, and then it's very much about how to use it and how is it going to be relevant for my team to then have that knowledge transfer. Because, you know, if we have all this super advanced stuff but no one knows how to actually use it, what have we done?
Yeah,
And
that's so true, especially with I'm not gonna say older, but the more experienced operators that have been in the industry for several years. Not all of them are huge fans of change or new technologies or having to, log in and use another app and things like that too. So it's kind of reading the room and the crowd and kind of who you're trying to implement it with.
definitely, and obviously there's a faster adoption amongst the more tech savvy or younger ones. Um, but yeah, I mean, and the key is again, it's appropriate stuff. I mean, the first question that a lot of people have with AI is it going to take my job? And everyone has that. I
Hmm.
mean, the marketing person at OTS when we first started using AI to generate images was very worried. Now she's the best at it, and it allows her to be so much more productive and just produce a lot more content. And so it's how do we show people and that's what utilities also need to ask is how is this going to, once we get over our initial fears, how is this actually going to make our team better
Right.
and ensure that we have long-term continuity for our operations?
Yeah, you're right. I think it's that mindset of, it's here to be a tool for you rather than like a replacement for the things that you are doing.
Exactly. It's, I mean, I don't want AI to replace me. So,
I'd rather not either. I like my job.
exactly. So it's, you know, it's how does it, but the question I always ask is how does it make, you know, me better at my job? Um, And so that's the, you know, constantly looking for ways to improve. And if utilities are doing the same thing, then they're going to start getting towards that the right tools to use that are appropriate for the utility and the team that works there.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially in today's day and age where everything's just evolving so fast, it seems like if there's ways that operators can become more efficient and productive on things, then yeah, absolutely. I feel like it'd
Yeah,
be beneficial to the workforce overall.
yeah. I've met very few operators that have ever said, "Hey, I'm underworked." So
Yeah.
if this can lessen their burden a little bit, so that they're more closer to appropriately worked, um, then I think we're in a good spot because it's yeah. I get the fear of oh you're adding another thing to my rounds, you're adding another
Mhm.
thing to this, whereas this should make it better.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially, going back to what we were talking about earlier, with a lot of utilities nowadays being understaffed and there just not being enough operators. Um, if this could potentially take the load off a little bit, and like I
Yeah.
said, make things a little more efficient and easier on those frontline workers, then I think it's a great tool to have.
Yeah.
How do you think operator training will change over the next 5 to 10 years? I know we just talked about how, AI wasn't such a thing 5 years ago, and now it's kind of in our day-to-day lives for a lot of people.
Yeah, I mean it's and I'm biased on this because I do think that it's going to be a lot more AI simulation training where people are being you know they're having concepts thrown at them that they will face in the real world.
Hmm.
And so I think that you know I keep saying you know when I talk with people in the industry, it's what's the least scary next step when trying AI because usually the least scary next step is the one that's been around the longest, the one that's the safest, and the one that you know it's jumping from no you know digital or smart water tools to full on digital twin running your plant. That's not going to happen. So it's you know it's a slow march to how do we you know just take that next step and I think you know in my from my self-serving perspective it's you know how do we use simulation training and develop ways to have SOPs that are more accessible and up to date in real time.
Yeah, you're right. I definitely see it kind of evolving more quickly on the training aspects and the training side of things versus the day-to-day operation. I definitely think it's going to expand largely in the operational kind of section too, but I definitely feel like it's going to be a huge difference when it comes to training. I mean, we're already seeing AI generated practice exams and different modules that you can access nowadays. So I feel like it's only just going to expand and rapidly over the next few years, even.
Definitely.
And finally, what is one thing our listeners need to H2 know about AI and operator training?
That's the least scary next step. Um, and the goal of using it is not necessarily to replace even the trainers. It's to help, because the best trainers are already doing scenario planning, but it's to ensure that everyone is as close to being the best trainer as possible, because the best trainers pass the most people through exams, and the best trainers build the most confident operators that we need um, that we need to deliver water and wastewater services effectively.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much. And now we are on to the fun questions. What is something that most people don't know about you?
Oh, I talk a lot, so that there's a lot of things that people do know about me. Um, oh, I don't know. I speak a little bit of Dutch, which most people, I guess, in the Ontario sector don't know. Every Dutch person I meet knows it. um, I lived there twice, once as a high school exchange student, and picked it up, though I've forgotten a lot of it.
Oh, that's interesting. I feel the same way about French. Grew up speaking French, did a whole bunch of exchanges all through, end of elementary school and high school. It's gone.
Yeah,
You don't use
it's
it and it disappears, right?
my daughter is in French immersion and in first grade, and by week one she was better in French than I was.
That's
I'm
scary,
working on
but
catching
also
up.
amazing.
Yes.
All right, next fun question. If you could have dinner with any historical figure, who would it be and why?
Didn't actually read these ones to prepare. Yeah, I don't know. Socrates. Um, I was a philosophy minor, and just the concept of just thinking about things, I love it. Because if you think hard enough, you can solve a lot of problems.
Yeah, that's very interesting.
Yeah,
That's a good
I have to work
choice.
on my ancient Greek, which is non-existent. How about you?
Oh, geez, putting me on the spot now. With any historical figure, honestly, I don't know. Probably, I don't know, maybe Christopher Columbus. Just
Cool.
reading about some of his adventures and, history and things like that. I feel like it'd be cool to like hear it directly from him.
Definitely.
So much to learn from people. Okay. Personal interest and fun question number 3. What is the most unconventional piece of advice you've received in your career?
You know what? And it's been the best piece of advice, and it was from Mike Stednicki, who was my first boss in the water industry, and it was find something interesting that you can make as your brand so that people know you. And so I started wearing bow ties, and it's gotten to the point where if I'm meeting people in a non-conference setting, and I'm not wearing a bow tie, because usually when I show up to utility, I'm not wearing a bow tie, because
Right.
that's um, and I'm usually more in like reflectors and PPE. So he said build your brand, and that will help you, because I'm not an operator, I'm not an engineer, I have no skills to fall back on.
Hmm.
Um, and so it's gotten to the point where people expect me to wear a bow tie. So that has helped me meet a lot of people. I mean, I'm pretty outgoing anyway, but it's helped me meet a lot of people just wearing a bow tie, um, than anything else.
I love that. I know I'll be looking for that bow tie one of the next conferences that I attend, that's for sure.
Definitely.
I don't know, for me, I think the most unconventional piece, not really unconventional, but it's just, taking those shots. I've had a lot of opportunities in my life. I started as a water and wastewater operator up in northwestern Ontario, out in the boonies in the middle of nowhere, very remote, small town. Then
Which
I had the opportunity to come to Guelph. Sorry, what was that?
whereabouts?
Oh, sorry. Pickle Lake, which is about 7 hours north of Thunder Bay. is where I was working and operating. Yep. Um, so then I had the opportunity to come back to Guelph, and I was actually born and raised in Fergus. So being able to kind of be back home has been amazing. But even since I started at Guelph, I've had several roles. I started here as a wastewater treatment operator. I did a 6 month secondment as an environmental protection officer. I went over to the wastewater collection team for a little bit, spent some time as a water program coordinator. So I was doing like the plant tours and classroom visits and things like that. And then I landed in my role on the compliance team as the licensing and records specialist. So, it's just kind of, there's no one thing fits everyone. You kind of taking those opportunities to explore kind of where you want to be within the industry. There's so many different positions and roles and things that you can be doing in it, both public and private. So just kind of finding that little niche of where you want to be and exploring different opportunities when you can. And that's probably been some of the best advice I've ever been given. And absolutely, I take full advantage of those opportunities when they come up.
Yeah,
I
that's
love what
awesome.
I'm doing now though, so they're stuck with me here for the foreseeable future, but
Same. Yeah.
All right, last question. What's a podcast, book, or show you'd recommend to fellow water professionals?
This is a book I recommend to everyone. It's Start with Why, Simon Sinek. There's a short video on YouTube that talks about it, but it really shows, if you start with why instead of what or how, it really shows your core. And so it allows you to really convey a proper message, and people to associate with that much more effectively. So,
Mhm.
um, yeah, Start with Why. I love the Acquired podcast these days. It's a podcast on long form on like different companies that have been successful over the ages. So,
Okay.
you know, 3 hours of listening to the history of Costco was really, really fun. um, and yeah, I mean, those are the main ones. I mean, Is It Cake is the best kids show you could ever watch. I watch that with my kids all the time. So for water professionals, if you want to take a break, watch Is It Cake.
Okay, that's good to know.
So how
All right,
about you?
John. I think honestly, I listen to some of the WEF podcasts. I
Yeah.
find some of those are very interesting, especially some of the ones surrounding Ops Challenge.
Yep.
I was actually on Guelph's Ops Challenge team, so that's something that's also very near and dear to my heart. I think it's a great opportunity for people to kind of see the challenges that people face in day-to-day operations and the camaraderie that comes with those competitions. It's a lot of fun. To put yourself out there like that is a challenge in itself, because I know me, I tend to be a little more introverted and shy and things like that, but that was a great opportunity for me to meet other people in the industry and get out there and do some networking and be on that center stage. There's lots of people watching you when you're competing. So just kind of hearing the ins and outs, especially WEF focuses on a lot of the teams down in the States. And as I'm sure you know, the competition down there is extremely intense. And so I find that whole thing interesting. I would love to get down there and watch it one of these years, but yeah.
It's the coolest. I do threaten every year, for my because I live in Durham region. I always threaten that one day I'm going to bring a sign to cheer the Durham Sledgehammers on from the sidelines.
Yeah.
They're great guys. It's yeah, and one day, because I'm like that. You guys need me as you need a fan to be holding up a fun sign.
Yeah,
I haven't seen
exactly.
it yet at the competition, which is why I haven't done it.
No, it's great. And it's a great group of people. Like it tends to be kind of the same teams from Ontario. So it's been great getting to know everybody. I'm still involved. I'm on the Ops Challenge committee now versus actually competing. So it's still great to get out there. But yeah, I do enjoy a lot of the WEF podcasts. So I
It's
definitely
awesome.
recommend those ones. Yeah. Well, Jonathan, thank you so much for joining us today on the What You Need to H2Know podcast.
Thank you. Yeah, great to be here.
And I'm sure we will
Thanks for
talk
having me.
/ see each other around at the next conference.
Sounds great. Yeah, see you soon.